Welcome again. Now we begin with the terrorism blacklisting of two prominent political parties in Nigeria. The People's Democratic Party, the PDP, and the All Progressives Congress, APC, have both condemned a Canadian federal court ruling that declared them terrorist organizations. The court made the ruling on June 17, 2025, while denying asylum to Douglas Egharevba, a former member of both parties, citing their involvement in political violence and subversion of democracy in Nigeria. The PDP dismissed the decision as biased and lacking evidence, urging its rejection. Similarly, the APC rejected the ruling, asserting it has no legitimacy or jurisdiction over Nigerian political parties. The court's decision has sparked concerns about its broader political implications beyond Canada's borders. Now, to discuss this, we are joined by legal practitioner Elvis Asia. Elvis, you're welcome. Thank you very much for joining us this afternoon. So, I'm wondering, does a ruling from a Canadian federal court have any legal effect within Nigeria's domestic jurisdiction as regarding the legal status of political parties such as the APC and PDP, like we've just heard?
Well, certainly not. The decision has there's no jurisdiction. It does not affect a legal system in any way, but it does have a very important effect internationally. What this simply means is that the international community are becoming tired and impatient with our flawed electoral process, and the political parties are now being viewed very differently internationally. And if you look at the decision, it doesn't pretend to be a decision of the Nigerian courts. What it simply says is that under the Relevant Immigration and Refugee Protection Act in Canada, the definition of terrorism and subversion of democratic process, the actions of the major political parties in Nigeria fits into that. And as a result, the person who applied for asylum was denied, and that denial has now been confirmed. So it doesn't, it does not really mean that there are terrorist organizations within the Nigerian legal system. What it means now is that other countries might want to learn from this, and members of these political parties may now be subject to more scrutiny in application for visas, application for residential permits, and of course, seeking asylum, as in this particular case.
Very interesting, Elvis, because let's also note that the APC is the party that the president belongs to. So there must be far-reaching implications here, especially when it comes to our international view, how we're perceived internationally. But to what extent can the anti-terrorism law of another sovereign nation, such as Canada in this case, legally classify Nigerian entities under its jurisdiction? What are the implications?
I mean, this is a common thing globally. Every country of the world has made legislations that seeks to protect their interests. And so when Mr. Egharevba, in this particular case, applies for asylum, they had the powers to look at it and see whether or not he qualifies, whether there's any basis for inadmissibility of him as an asylum seeker in Canada. And their laws, from their interpretation of the law, classify him as such, being a member of a political party that has been, involved in all forms of violence and subversion of a democratic process. And one of the questions we need to ask ourselves: what is terrorism actually? Terrorism simply means intimidation, violence to achieve a political aim. And the question you and I should ask ourselves is that, are political parties guilty of this in Nigeria? If you look at the year that they used as a case study, 2003, for example, it was political bloodshed. We saw clear cases of violence in an attempt to gain power. We saw clear cases of intimidation. Even the last election that was held in Nigeria, 2023 election, we saw intimidation. All of these in their own view. And if we really want to look at it, maybe we haven't thought about it.
Okay.
These are terrorist actions
against
Nigerian people. And so yes, it does not it doesn't have an effect within the Nigerian jurisdiction, but internationally,
okay,
it depicts how we are now being perceived.
So
how
Elvis,
actions are now being perceived.
So Elvis, to that end of perception, are there any laws or any processes for recognizing or rejecting foreign judgments as these?
I mean, there's no need to be, I mean, there's no procedure for rejecting a foreign judgment. What Mr. Egharevba can do is only Mr. Egharevba that's affected by this, legally speaking. So I'm sure there are still appeal processes that can land in the Canadian Supreme Court, on this. Maybe that option can be explored, but there are no legal processes that you can use to say you don't want a foreign judgment to be binding on you. And don't forget that this decision is only binding on Mr. Egharevba as it relates to his application for asylum. It is not a precedent for any other person, so he alone can challenge that decision through the appeal process, which I believe is still available in Canada. But I don't think Nigeria or any other country can, take any step, legally speaking, to try to overturn this. But what they can do, perhaps, might be diplomatic. Maybe diplomatic relations with Canada might be explored. But I doubt if that is going to work. I say this because this is not the first time the Canadian Federal Court is making this kind of decision. There's a precedent, as far back as 2017, as it relates to a major political party in Bangladesh, in a case known as Ghazi versus Canada. In that case, the same Canadian court decided that the BNP, which is a major political party in Bangladesh, was a terrorist organization, and that anybody that belongs to that organization is deemed to have been involved in whatever activities that they are involved in, and as such.
So, Mr. Elvis, that's exactly the argument I'm raising here, Elvis. The fact that this involves Mr. Egharevba. However, it might also have implications on people who are still in the party, the PDP and the APC. What about when they are seeking for such documents themselves? Wouldn't they be subjected to the same treatment as Mr. Egharevba?
Of course, you are right. What it simply means for politicians in major political parties in Nigeria now, the APC and the PDP, is that they're going to face stiffer and more stringent scrutiny, even in applications for visas, applications for asylum, as in this case, application for permanent residency in other countries. And this decision, they also influence the thinking in other countries in terms of assessing applications by Nigerians who are members of these political parties. And for me, it's a fair decision, because you cannot destroy your systems and then you don't run to another country to seek asylum. You're going to be giving them issues. You're going to be giving them, it's going to involve cost for them. And so they have the right to determine who can, come into their country. And that's what they have done. Yes, it has that implication, but it doesn't mean that anybody who feels that he or she will be affected. You haven't gone to apply for asylum. You haven't gone to seek residency. You haven't gone to apply for visa. So it will be on a case-by-case basis. Okay. And if you look at the reports, I was shocked that it was the same Mr. Egharevba who actually brought to the fore the political violence in the Nigerian political system as the basis for seeking asylum. He was the one that his arguments were essentially that the Nigerian political environment was violent. And so if you are now denying on the basis that you were a member for so many years and you never fought against it, I don't see what kind of fairness he's going to be talking about.
Elvis Asia, thank you very much for joining us and giving us the details on your side. Thank you.
Thank you for having me on the program.